Well, I am thankful that James and Kim are here with us today. We welcome them today. Honestly, when they came the first time and we met them the first time, these beautiful young ladies that they have with them weren't with them. No, they were very young and starting out their ministry in Chi Alpha. And I just love and appreciate them. Peggy and I remember you from a long time back, and we welcome you. And thank you for being here. Oh, by the way, in case you guys don't know, we got reacquainted at the snack bar. We served at camp together again and kind of got reconnected there. And it was kind of a fun time to serve with them. But instead of me just rambling, why don't you come on up, James? All right? My wife says amen. Come on in. Kim's going to come as well. She's going to start. Okay. Well, hey.
Well, thank you for bringing us in, Pastor Darren. He took a shot on us 11 years ago, and he's taking another shot on us now, so we'll see how this goes. My name is Kim Bowley, and this is my husband, James, and we have been the lead missionaries at SEMO Chi Alpha since 2013. That's Southeast Missouri State over in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. And I talked to a couple of the guys earlier. I am actually from Willow Springs, Missouri, and it's quite a fun story how I ended up in Cape Girardeau, but I'm going to try and keep this short. But if you're curious how a girl from Willow ended up becoming a missionary in Cape Girardeau, let's talk afterwards. But in the 11 years that we have been the Chi Alpha directors at SEMO, we have seen 177 college students come to know Jesus. Yeah, very cool. That's very incredible, actually. And then we have seen 10 students graduate and have served or are currently serving in ministry. We have purchased a Chi Alpha property, debt-free. So that was a very recent event as of a year or 2 years ago. And our greatest joy right now that we are currently celebrating is that we are sending out a team to start Chi Alpha at the University of Central Missouri. I don't have a picture of them, I'm sorry. But their names are Jake and Jacqueline Rankin, and they were our first students that we met 11 years ago. Jacqueline was literally the first girl I poured into and met with regularly and started discipling her. And Jake was the first male student, guy student that James met and started discipling. And in the course of their college career, Jake was there for engineering, Jacqueline was there for nursing, but as they kind of had some background in Christianity, all Jacqueline was looking for when she came to college, aside from her nursing degree, was a Bible study. She's like, I just need to know who Jesus is. And I was like, well, that's great, because that's all we can offer right now is a Bible study. And she started coming regularly, very hungry for Jesus. And Jake, kind of the same deal. He was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just here for a good time. And James is like, well, hey, what are your thoughts on Jesus? And throughout this process, both of them on their own were trying to figure out who Jesus really was, what he meant in their lives, and to be obedient to him. And throughout the course of their time, they obviously got closer to Jesus. We got to baptize both of them, and they both made decisions to follow Jesus post-graduation to be missionaries. And these were our first students. They became our first staff members. They learned our culture of Chi Alpha and helped create culture of Chi Alpha, of students discipling students. And now as they have continued to pursue Jesus, they have now felt called to pioneer a Chi Alpha where there isn't one, to do essentially what James and I did for them 11 years ago. Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And with that joy, because it is joy, it's great. You're seeing your kids grow up and do cool things. Could not be more proud. Oh, I cry every time I speak, don't you worry. God keeps me humble. And with that joy comes the growing pains of sending them out and having to start over, which is great. We're having to rebuild, build up more students, build up more staff, and hopefully those staff will also continue to go out and pioneer where Jesus is not currently, whether that's on a college campus or world missions. We already have students wanting to go to China, wanting to go be youth pastors, wanting to go wherever God calls them to because of the culture that we have created over the past 11 years. Anyway, if you can't tell, we love our students very deeply. But we have so many stories that we could share about so many different students. We're just really excited about Jake and Jack. And if you want to know more cool stories that just happen throughout the course of, over time, we do have like an email that we send out of just like, hey, here's a cool God story that happened this week. And it just keeps you up to date on the cool things happening, and you get to see other students' journeys of their walk with Jesus and celebrate with us as they come to know Jesus or they make a really cool God decision. And I'll be honest, sometimes I put prayer requests in there too because it's not always easy, but we want to share with you guys. We want to share life. We want to share the good. We want to share the hard. We just want to share the real. And if you want to know that, there's a QR code you can scan, and I promise they're really short. This is probably like the longest you'll hear from me right now. And yeah, we would just love for you guys to stay in the loop of what we do and to celebrate with us these really awesome celebrations.
Thanks, Kim. I've been very fortunate. My wife is a great team member. She does a great job in many areas that I am not good at. So when it comes to women's ministry, she's great. When it comes to tech stuff, she's actually really good. When it comes to administration stuff, she's great. The reason that we are able to have a Chi Alpha property debt-free is because of her. God laid it in our heart that we would have a Chi Alpha property. God laid it in her heart that we would do it debt-free. And I thought she was crazy. And turns out she was listening to God, and I wasn't. So anyway, we're in a very busy season of life. How about you? Things are moving quite quickly on campus. We've got a lot of, irons in the fire, so to speak. A lot of things going on, a lot of movement. And sometimes it seems like when you get into that stage, things start to, you maybe start looking at different places and start to think about the different things that you're having to do. And sometimes it gets a little hard to focus in on individual aspects. I know I really appreciated Darren getting up here, and some of the things that he was saying were right on point with some of the stuff we're talking about. Our culture is moving really quickly. Our culture has a lot of different things going on right now. Sometimes the things that are going on in culture, like maybe last night, make you a little concerned about where things are headed. What is the direction of our country? What is the direction of our life? How does this impact me? How is this going to impact me long term? And as we are working through some of these culture aspects, I just want to remind us that Jesus, as he was walking this earth, was going through a similar time. A lot of unrest, a lot of people moving really quickly, trying to keep up with life. Things are happening. People are sick. People are having a hard time with their culture. People are having a hard time with their stress. And yet Jesus comes, and Jesus does what he does best. He redirects culture. He begins to change the way that culture is looking. And I want to look at how did Jesus go about doing this. I know that Pastor Darren and I have talked in the past, and he's really big on discipleship. Discipleship is the heart of what we do. Not James and Kim, but what we as Christians should do. Christians are called to go and make disciples. So I want to take a look at this passage in Matthew. We don't have to go to the Matthew verse yet. You got the title up? Boom. So the Jesus method is go and make disciples. Have you ever had a friend for a long time, and then all of a sudden something happens, and that friend from a long time ago begins to question your character? It kind of hurts, right? It's kind of awful when you have somebody that's your buddy, your friend, your best friend, and then all of a sudden, you got it? You're not touching it? Oh, okay. Just ignore the flashing screen. It's all good. So, are you questioning my character? So this is the reality of actually the Jesus story. The reality of our story with God begins in the garden. It begins with a God that loves us and has created us to be in a relationship with him. And what do? The very first thing, we question his character. We question that he's good. The serpent comes. The serpent asks a question of Eve. What's the question the serpent asks? Did God really say that? And Eve doubts. Eve questions, maybe there is something better for me. Maybe God doesn't have the best thing in mind for me. And we fall. It's not all Eve's fault. It's Adam's fault too. But we fall. We question God's character. We turn our backs on him. And it hurts him. And so what does God do? God throws us out of the garden. He's mad. We're done forever. No, he does throw us out of the garden. There's consequences to the way that we hurt him. But God does this beautiful thing in the garden. What does he do? He clothes their shame. How does he clothe their shame? He covers them with a sacrifice. Something had to die to clothe our shame. This is the story of God and humanity that eventually we see Jesus being the fulfillment of the covering of our shame, right? Jesus comes. Jesus covers our shame. He brings us back into relationship with God. This is the method that Jesus did. He came and he had relationship with us. The same way that God has relationship with us in the garden, Jesus comes as a man so that we can know him intimately, so we can have a picture of who God is in this world. And he could say, hey, no, I don't want to be this far off God. I don't want to be this person that you worship but you don't ever think about. I want to be this person that you walk around with and talk to every day. Driving to work, at work, eating dinner, with your kids. I want to be a person that is a part of your life. This is what discipleship is. Then we look at Matthew 28:18. Then Jesus came to them and said, this is after the resurrection, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to obey everything that I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, even to the end of the age. Hope that last little part gives you a little encouragement today. He's with us. He's still here. He's not surprised by anything that's been happening, right? Nothing in your life has surprised him. He's been with us. He will be with us. But what I want to look at is our response to this statement. For a long time, as I became a Christian, a better Christian in college, I started to realize a little bit of the responsibility that God was asking of me. And this idea of going and making disciples was very difficult because in college, I had been a Christian for a while. I had not ever read the Bible all the way through. I was praying and I was trying to learn some of these things that I was trying to do. But I realized that I had never made a disciple. And the idea of making a follower of Jesus, helping someone to learn all the commandments and stuff, I didn't know the commandments, right? Helping someone to become that type of person was very difficult in my mind. I'm like, man, I'm at a secular college. This is where I found Chi Alpha. Secular college, secular friends. I was an art student, so you can imagine the kind of people that I worked with. They were wonderful people. I loved them. Some of them, maybe a little rough around the edges. But yeah, maybe a little out there. Maybe. But some of them were great. Like, I actually had Christian art student friends with me. They just didn't like to talk about it because they got made fun of. But anyway, moving on. Sorry. Off subject. Here's the deal. The beauty of being at a secular university is when you've got a lot of secular friends, you're going to have a lot of really hard conversations about who God is. Because people that don't go to church sometimes have really good, hard questions that we need to answer. And I felt very inferior. I felt like, man, I haven't had success in this. I'm not capable. I'm not worthy. I'm not able to answer people's questions. Now, we've been doing ministry for a while. And in this time that we've been doing ministry, I have found that there's something very important about this idea of being around people that have questions and trying to help them, okay? When we look at success, maybe the idea that we have of what is success is not the same thing that Jesus is thinking about, right? I do believe that fruit, when Jesus talks about you will go and you will bear good fruit, I do believe fruit is going to be two things. It's going to be a heart change in you, but it's also going to be in souls. You're going to see people around you that are also changed by who Jesus is within you. There are, I want to get back to this Matthew verse, okay? There's a really important thing in this Matthew verse that I didn't catch until later in life. So when Jesus says go, there are three tenses in Greek, right? So if you take the Greek language, right, the go would have these different tenses to them. The first tense is the active tense. It's what you can control, okay? The second tense is the passive tense, what you can't control. The third tense is called the middle tense. It is what has begun that you take part in. It is both in your hands and out of your hands. Go is in this middle tense. When Jesus tells you to go and make disciples, this is both something you have not started, but it's something you're supposed to participate in. When Jesus says go, he's already going. He's already gone before you. He's going with you. He initiated salvation. You don't initiate salvation in anybody's life, right? I don't initiate. We have 177 people that have initiated salvation with Jesus. That he initiated with them, and they said yes to it, right? Now, to be honest with you, I actually believe that number is something different, okay, if I'm going to be honest. These are people that have verbally responded at a service, at a small group, something like that. However, I know there are people that have not verbally responded because they were like, yeah, I'm a Christian. But because of the transformation that I've seen in their life from the time that they were a freshman until the time that now, whatever that is, I'm like, we don't always know as much as we think we do, right? So I don't know how many people have actually gotten saved in our ministry. It might be less than that. It might be more than that. But that's the number that we have, right? Jesus has initiated salvation with you. Jesus has gone and said it to you in multiple places of your life. I love you, and I want to be with you. I want to know you, and more than that, I want you to know me. This is what salvation is. Salvation is not a get-out-of-hell card, right? Salvation is a relationship with Jesus. Our salvation is our being in the presence of God. One day, you will die. One day, you will pass away from this earth. One day, you will be with Jesus, hopefully. That is the goal. Salvation is not that when you die, there is something better for you. The real salvation is that right now in your life, you have Jesus to help you go through hard times. You have Jesus, the presence of God, to carry you to places that you need to be, to get you through the hard things of this world. This is the reality that we have. We need to realize that success is not always what we think. Success sometimes in the Christian walk is actually a changed life. It's actually being able to go through that hard time and say, you know what, this is not fun. This is not good. But I have peace, like what Pastor Darren was saying earlier. I can go through the hard times. I can go through transitions in my life. We are going through a major transition right now where we're taking two of our best staff people and we're saying, you're awesome, you need to go. Not that we don't like you anymore, but that you are more than capable of taking Jesus to a place that he is not right now. We need you to do that. And you know what? That's going to be awful. for us. Selfishly, this is going to be painful. I'm taking my 2 best workers, if you want to call them that, put it in a business mindset. 2 best workers. They've never had a small group less than 16 people, right? Never. They go out. We have students who go out and have a small group, and they'll have maybe 6 people in a small group. That's fine. That's good. But these 2 people never had less than 16. And we're sending them away. That's 16 people in our small groups aren't going to have. Not 16, but it's actually going to be like 32 because there's 2 of them. Guys group and a girls group. That's a lot of people. When your ministry is running like, 70, something like that, losing 32 people potentially, that's a lot of people to lose, right? So we have a lot to lose by sending them out. Do we? No, not really. Not in actuality. We have a lot to gain by sending them out. So we're excited by that. Success is not always what we think it is. But the other thing is like success in our lives spiritually is, are we able to encourage people around us in life change? It's not just my life change, but according to this, Jesus says, go and make disciples. Can I help someone else be a disciple? And it doesn't mean that I have to sit down and I have to win somebody to Christ and I have to walk them through the salvation prayer and all that type of things. But maybe I just need to sit down with people and pray with them. Dude, it was so cool watching you guys come up here and pray for each other today. This church has something special. I hope you see that. I hope you appreciate that in your church. This is pretty cool. It doesn't seem like, and I don't know, but it doesn't seem like you're just a community that gets together on a Sunday, you see each other, you wave, and then you leave. It seems like there's more than that going on here, which is what the church is supposed to be. The good news is that Jesus is not sending you out alone to go and make disciples. This is a team effort, not just between him and you. The Holy Spirit in you is empowering you, or should be empowering you, to encourage the people around you. The encouragement that you receive in private from him should be the things that show up in public. But also, you have your church to go with you, to also be an encouragement to you. Because sometimes when life is hard, we don't always feel like being encouraged. We don't feel like being an encourager when all of a sudden things are happening that you don't expect, that you don't want, that are not good. The Christian life is not supposed to be easy, unfortunately. I would like to say it is. It's not. Jesus tells us it's not. In this world you will have trouble, but I have overcome the world. Our world is a messed up place. We need each other to get through it. Because sometimes when I'm having a bad day, when I'm grumpy, and I go to my wife and I'm like, I am not happy. Fill out all these reasons why I would not be happy. My wife is able to come alongside me and say, hey, get over it. I love you, but you're being dramatic. Go eat a Snickers bar or something, right? But then we have each other where when she's having a bad day, I can listen and hopefully listen and not try to talk too much, but listen and try to encourage her too. We need each other. This is what discipleship is about. It's not just me grabbing someone else and pulling them up, but it's me standing along someone else and we're walking together towards Jesus. As followers of Jesus, making disciples is our general mission. So general mission, specific mission. Here's your specific mission. What do you do for a living? What does God ask you to do with what he has given you? Your abilities, your talents, your hobbies. That's your specific mission. Your specific mission is those people around you, the circle of influence, if you will, that you have in your life, people that would never come to this church on their own. That's your specific mission. So sometimes people get this idea kind of mixed up. And forgive me if I have ever said anything that is disagreeing with Pastor Darren or whatever. Calling is not a vocation. Calling is to a person, to the person of Jesus Christ. You are called to be with Jesus. That's your calling. Now, sometimes the mission he gives you in that calling is to go out and do a certain job or to be a pastor, minister, youth pastor, volunteer, whatever. I don't know what your specific calling is exactly, but I can tell you he has gifted you in certain ways that your specific calling is something pretty easy for you to fall into, right? There are people in your world that are not going to know any other Christians, believe it or not. In our world, we think sometimes people talk about the U.S. being a Christian country. It's really not anymore. We see college students walk in every year in August. Freshmen come in. More often than not, they have no idea of who Jesus really is. They might understand that you go to church and you talk about Jesus. That's what they know. Maybe he died on a cross and we celebrate by opening Easter eggs, right? Maybe. What does Easter eggs have to do with the cross? But anyway, moving on. They have no clue most of the time. Most of our college kids that we meet and we hang out with, they are not Christian. We have usually less than a percentage of the people in our ministry have any AG background. Less than 1%. Most of them, so usually I would say 1/3 of them, have some sort of Christian background. They have gone to church regularly. They know some Bible verses. They might pray from time to time. They would consider themselves a Christian. 1/3 of our group. So maybe, this last year, maybe 20 kids. Another 20 kids would say, oh, yes, I'm a Christian. How often do you go to church? Christmas, Easter, Creaster. But that's about it. The other 1/3 have no understanding of Jesus. Most of my leadership team, the best students in our ministry, did not grow up Christian. Some of them were raging atheists. It's nuts. And then God got a hold of them because they were looking for something, and it changed their world. Guess what? This is discipleship. We didn't do it because I'm a good speaker. That's not what happened. No. I want to look at how Jesus looked at relationships. And this is not in the notes, so don't worry about it. John 15:12-14. My command is this: love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that they would lay one's life down for their friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. In our Chi Alpha, we have a theme verse. Abby, you know what the theme verse is? What is it? 1 Thessalonians 2:8. What's it say? Do you want to try to say it? I put her on the spot. You want to try to say it? You know what it says? She might be too embarrassed. She's too embarrassed. You too embarrassed? She did it this morning. I tested her. Because we loved you so much, we were delighted to share with you not only the gospel of God, but our lives as well. 1 Thessalonians 2:8. This is the foundation of our ministry. This is how we do discipleship, because this is what we saw Jesus do. Jesus loved us so much that he shared his life with us on a cross. He shared the good news with us that the King has come, that we can be invited back into the kingdom, that the kingdom is taking over. It's going to take some time, but he's here. That's the good news. And we get to be a part of it. So on our campus, what we're doing is we're inviting students over to our house, because up until this last year, we didn't really have a building. So our house was the building. So we invited people over to our house, and our neighbors were awesome because they didn't complain about there being 40 college kids over at their quiet little place, neighborhood, hanging out. And I was so proud of our college kids when they're not being super disruptive when they leave after midnight. Our neighbors are like, we didn't even know when they left. And I'm like, praise God. Because eventually I was figuring somebody would complain, and we'd have to change things up a little bit. But as of yet, the complaining has not been from the front yard. So it's been from the backyard. But anyway, Here's the reality. The reality is we share our life with these students. We give up going to bed at a reasonable hour of the night. I give up the fact, it's such a sacrifice. I give up the fact that I don't have a normal job, right? When my buddies that I go to church with say, hey, do you want to hang out on Saturday morning at 6 a.m.? I'm like, no. I went to bed on Saturday morning. I don't want to get up at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning. People were at my house till 2. I don't want to go to bed then. I don't want to go to bed. I don't want to go to bed at 2. I do sometimes. But anyway, the beauty of sharing your life with someone is that you're able to share what Jesus has done in you. This is what discipleship is. It's actually super easy. You have to spend time with Jesus. You have to be changed by Jesus. And then you just share your life. You share that reality. What is this change that's happening in me? I'm not perfect. Far from perfect. In fact, and this is embarrassing, but I feel like Jesus promotes me from one level of incompetence to the next, right? That I don't know how to do things, and I have to do them. And I have to rely on him to help me get them done. I have never done a building project before. I am not a construction guy. A lot of this stuff we're doing at this house to make it actually, it's kind of a hole right now. It's not going to be. But right now, it's a work in progress like us, right? Jesus is doing a work on its insides. And eventually, the insides are going to show up on the outside, right? So it's kind of cool that he's doing that. But I have no experience, and I'm quite bad at this. So I have to bring people around me to teach me, to disciple me, and helping me make sure I do these things well. Because I don't want to waste what God has given me. I hope you don't want to waste what God has given you. He's given you a life that you can use for his glory if you will let him. And this is what we're asking you to do as disciple makers. To go out and to share what God is doing with you on the inside. Share with those people around you what's happening on the inside so they can see it on the outside. This is discipleship. Over and over again. Jesus, just as he is a person and not a magic ticket to heaven, discipleship is a relationship and not a program. There is no program of discipleship that is going to work perfectly in your situation, your environment. It's going to be a relationship. That's what's going to work. Real relationship with real people. Now, there are things, obviously, there are programs that are going to teach you better and help you in different ways and stuff like that. That's great. But those are not the most important things. The most important things are a real relationship with Jesus, turning into a real commitment to him to share him with other people. That is what is going to work. So how do you do this? Let's wrap this up. Okay. How do we do this on our campus? We wrap this up on our campus by helping people, students in particular, see people that they need to be investing in especially. Now, sometimes you just know that person. Sometimes you know, oh, hey, I have 2 beautiful daughters that I need to be investing in. Okay? That's a very clear statement. Easy. I'm going to invest in them. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm just going to do it. Okay? But then there's other people in your life that you're like, should I work on this coworker or this coworker, right? Well, we have some students that are student leaders that are going to invest in other people. How do you determine who you're going to invest in? Well, we want our student leaders to be STAIRS, okay? It's an acronym, STAIRS. Spirit-led, teachable, available, influential, and reliable. Now, when we look at people to invest in, we want them to be STAIRS, right? So what I have to do is I have to say, look, the reason that you're here as a leader is because you are a STAIR. We looked at you and we saw that you are a STAIR. We looked at you and saw that you were Spirit-led. We saw that you're teachable. We saw that you're available. We saw that you're influential and reliable. We saw these things in you. But guess what? We're not perfect, so you need to continue to develop these things. Are you still Spirit-led? Are you hearing from God? So we are a Pentecostal group, but like I said, most of our students are not, right? When someone speaks in tongues, everybody freaks out and they're like, what is that? They're demon-possessed. You don't even believe in Jesus. Why do you believe in demons? All right? So anyway, when that happens, people are quite surprised. But then we start telling them the Bible and telling them about who the Holy Spirit is and how he can work inside of you. And it helps out a lot. But still, sometimes people are not necessarily Holy Spirit filled before they come on our leadership team. Sometimes it takes them a little while to get there. Okay? But the point is, God will speak to you if you will listen. So the first thing we need to know is, are you listening to God? Are you hearing from him? What are you hearing? Because what you're hearing is kind of important. The next thing is teachable. Are you responsible to what you know? I know that Abby is often responsible for what she knows. I tell her to do something, and she goes and does it. Lizzie's still getting there. Little 4-year-old. You're figuring it out. But sometimes we don't always clean our room, right? Do you spiritually always clean your room? I know I haven't always done that. I need to. Are you available? Is Jesus' mission a priority to you? Is he in your priorities? Influential. Are you a giver or are you a taker? Sometimes we think of influential and we think of like, oh, political influence, the mayor of our town, maybe the superintendent or something like that. Influential people, big business people, people that have money. That's not influential. Okay? Influential is, do you give or do you take? Takers are not influential. Okay? Givers are influential. And then reliable. Can you be counted on? Can Jesus count on you? These are the things that we're asking our students. Are you this? What area do you need to grow in? But then when they're investing in someone else, when they're putting all of their time in someone else, they take these 3 people that they hang out with all the time. Are those people going to be a stare? Oh, yeah, I love this guy. He's awesome. He knows all this stuff about the Bible and da-da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, good. Is he teachable? Well, how do you think that he's teachable? Show me how you think he's teachable. Well, he reads his Bible. That's good. That's a very good thing. I want that. But does he do his Bible? Does he live his Bible? And sometimes all of a sudden you start to find people that, oh, well, they look all pretty and shiny on the outside, but in reality, they're not teachable. They're not available. They got their own things going on in life. They're not reliable. They're not somebody that somebody else can count on, but they're shiny and pretty. But they're not actually going to serve people. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for people that are going to serve. So these are the things that I would encourage you in your own life. Look at these things. Look at the people around you. Is there somebody in your life that is a stare that you're like, hey, wow. Like, I could encourage them. You don't need to make them a better person. You just need to be there for them and help them walk through the life of faith. Invest in people that are going to help other people get to Jesus. All right, I'm going to wrap up. I've gone a little long. So one of the things that I like to do, I like to remind people that as Jesus tells us to reach all nations is here. All nations does not mean China. We've got people that we know that because of our relationship, they're praying in China today. They're praying in Pakistan today. That's pretty cool. It's a huge blessing for us to have been in a place where we can have relationships like this, and people have responded in the way they have. It's cool. But guess what? Pakistan is an all nation. It's another nation. China is all nations. Guess what? U.S. is all nations too. We need everyone to make disciples. If you are a follower of Jesus, we need you to be making disciples of the people around you. In Acts, it talks about going into Jerusalem and Judea and to all the world, right? So Jerusalem is your Mountain Grove or Hartville or whatever town you're from, right? Where you are is where you should be making disciples. As you are going, make disciples. Where you are is where you need to be. It may not be where you're going, May not be where you end up, but it's where you are currently. Don't look down on where you are. Don't always think about what's the future, what's ahead. Care about where you are, care about the people you're around, care about helping them become a person that knows Jesus. Be a stair that somebody else can walk up on and stand on your shoulders so they can get closer to Jesus. Okay? So I'm going to wrap up. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to pray some stuff with me. Okay? I want you to pray, number one, are you a stair? Are you a person that is helping other people get closer to Jesus? And then I'm going to go through those. Do we have the teachable? Do we have the STAIR acronym? Put that up there so people can look at it. Thank you. I want you to think, are you a stair? I want you to look at these things, and I want you to think, like, okay, which one of these areas do I need to be growing in today? And then I want you to be thinking, am I helping to make disciples of all nations? Okay, so two things. One, are you a stair? Are you helping people get closer to Jesus? And two, who do you need to be discipling so that we can fill heaven? Okay, go ahead and bow your heads and close your eyes. And what I will challenge you to do as we're praying this, if you want prayer for someone that you know in your life that needs to be a follower of Jesus, because I know that you're a praying church, I want you to come up here if there's someone you're praying for to know Jesus, if you're trying to disciple them. And then if you see somebody come up, if your friend comes up, family member, whatever, I want you to join them to pray with them, okay, so that people aren't praying alone. All right, I'm going to pray. As I'm praying, you come. Jesus, we ask that you would encourage us, God, that you would help us to understand what you are wanting to do in our lives. You have spoken into our lives. You have given us calling, given us gifting, given us mission. But more than that, Jesus, you've put people in our lives that we can influence to know you. God, I ask that right now you would drop into individuals' minds these pictures, these names of these people that they should be encouraging, that they should be sharing life with, that they should be loving in their lives right now, God, so that these people can come to know you. As you're thinking people in your mind, as you have people come into your mind, I want you to come forward and get prayer for these people. Okay? Let's take a couple of minutes. Let's just respond to what God's doing. And if God's not putting people in your mind, he should be dropping these ideas of STAIR into your mind. Are you Spirit-led? Are you listening to him? Are you teachable? Are you available? Are you influential? Are you a giver or a taker? Are you reliable? Pray on these things right now. I'm just going to close in prayer right now. God, thank you again for who you are, for loving us in the way that you do, for coming to us, God, and making a way for us to be in a relationship with you. God, as we continue in our relationship with you, God, I ask that we would be driven closer and closer to your heart. And your heart is always for those that don't know you. In our minds, Jesus, this week, I ask that you would allow us to see the people around us that don't know you. And God, sometimes when we see these people, sometimes I know that in me, I get irritated because of their lifestyle, because of their choices. But God, I ask that you would always help us, Lord, to go beyond that, to look beyond the irritation, to look beyond the annoyance. God, allow us to honor them by seeing you, by seeing your image in them. That we would love people, God, the way you love us. You don't see in us our rebellion. You see in us your creation. what we were made to be from the beginning of the world, the way that you thought of us, the way that you saw us, God. Father, thank you for the vision that you have for our life. But Jesus, more than that, I thank you for the vision that you have for the lives of the people around us and how you have invited us to make disciples, to partner with you, to go with you as you change the world. God, help us to always keep this in mind, that this is our specific calling, to reach these people in our lives around us, to love them, to invite them into our family. God, as we go from this place, help us to remember it in all the restaurants that we go to, when we go to our kitchen table back home, that we have people that we need to be reaching. It's in your name.